The last video that I published was a very negative and somewhat mean-spirited critique of Madden 24's training camp minigames. As harsh as that video was, I do believe in trying to find positives and silver linings, and also in giving credit where credit is due. So, I also want to try to find something nice to say about Madden 24. But, I got nothing. So, thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and become a contributor on Patreon so that you can get previews and early access to new content while also helping to offset the cost of the software licenses that I use for editing this content and also for the hosting and maintenance of the blog website. I offer my sincere thanks to all of my patrons, past, present, and future. Your support really does mean a lot, and I wish you all the best. Okay. In all seriousness now, despite all of the awful design decisions that went into Madden 24, only some of which were covered by that last video about the training camp, there is one feature in Madden 24 that I do feel was significantly upgraded over last year's game. That feature is the coaching skill trees. Just to refresh everyone's memory, in Madden 23, every coach had exactly 2 skill trees, which were identical for every coach in a coaching position. All head coaches had the same 2 skill trees, all offensive coordinators had the same 2 skill trees, and all defensive coordinators had the same 2 skill trees. Every coach felt almost exactly the same, and the only thing that really mattered at all was the scheme and playbooks of the head coach. As far as I could tell, the scheme and preferred playbooks of the coordinators did absolutely nothing. There was no reason to ever fire a coordinator, since you would only end up having to hire a functionally identical coordinator to replace him, and then have to spend extra time re-earning the experience needed to refill the replacement coordinator's skill tree. The only reason you ever might want to fire a coordinator was if you wanted to reset the skill trees and choose different skills, because remember, there were those mutually exclusive branches. But even that wasn't really necessary, since head coaches all have a skill that allows them to reset a coordinator's skill tree once per season. You just have to earn enough skill points to unlock that head coach skill in order to use it, and then it doesn't friggin' matter which coordinator you have, because you can reset their skills whenever you want. The implementation of skill trees for coaches felt so ridiculously and obviously incomplete and half-assed in Madden 23 that I honestly cannot believe that the game shipped with those skill trees in place. And also that it wasn't patched, like, within weeks of release to replace those skill trees with, like, actual real skill trees. Well, alright, actually, never mind. This is Madden, and it's EA, so I definitely believe that a game would ship with a franchise mode feature being incomplete and half-assed. That is, after all, Madden's entire modus operandi, and has been for at least the past 10 years. But then again, Madden 23 did do some relatively successful mulligans of some features that had been originally introduced within the past few years. And so Madden 24 also had to follow up with a successful mulligan of this coaching skill tree feature from last year. In Madden 24, each coach now has 3 skill trees, and the specific combination of skill trees and the abilities therein are based on the specific coach's scheme. For example, an offensive coordinator who runs a power running scheme will have skills that boost run blocking and running back abilities, specifically those associated with power running, such as run block power for linemen and trucking and ball security for running backs. A coordinator who runs a shotgun spread passing scheme, on the other hand, will have skills that boost quarterback throwing ratings and receiver catching and route running ratings. On the other side of the ball, a defensive coordinator who runs a Tampa 2 scheme will have skills that favor zone coverage for DBs and linebackers, as well as pass rush moves for defensive ends and tackles, while a defensive coordinator with a blitz-heavy scheme will have skills that grant bonuses to linebackers' pass rushing and block breaking ratings. And then, of course, a DC who runs more of a man coverage scheme will have skills that boost man coverage for corners and safeties, and so forth. Of course, neither game has special teams coordinators because, whatever, fuck special teams, I guess. But at least this is an improvement. There is still a lot of overlap between the skill trees of various coaches, but having different sets of 3 skill trees combined with the mutually exclusive paths on each tree gives a lot more variation between what an individual coach is good at. Hiring a new coordinator in Madden 24 isn't a simple, thoughtless matter of looking for the coordinator with the most total skills. Instead, you actually do want to look for a coordinator who shares your offensive or defensive philosophy, as that coach will probably have skills that will be more relevant to the personnel that you put on your roster and the plays that you call for that personnel. He might not have them unlocked yet, but he'll have them available. So if you want to change coordinators either between seasons or maybe even in the middle of the season, you actually have things to think about. So for instance, if you decide that you want to switch from a 4-3 Tampa 2 style defense to a 3-4 blitz defense, then you would probably want to fire your current defensive coordinator and hire a new one who's going to have skill trees that will better supplement your new blitz-heavy scheme. Also, if you lose one of your coordinators for any reason, like say your offensive or defensive coordinator gets poached in the offseason and hired as a head coach for another team, replacing him could actually be a big deal, because there might not necessarily be another coach available who runs the exact same scheme or has all of the abilities that you had with your previous coordinator. So you're probably just going to have to hire whoever comes the closest and then just try to take the abilities that are best. And then, maybe next season, if different coordinators become available, maybe you fire that guy and replace him with someone who's a better fit, and then hope that guy doesn't get poached. Even though this system is a dramatic improvement over last year's game, it still has a lot of notable flaws and limitations. For some reason, head coaches and the personnel management trees are all the same for every head coach and personnel manager on every team. Head coaches all have the same trees that grant experience boosts to offensive and defensive players and skill discounts to coordinators. So every head coach is still kind of a blank slate and functionally identical, other than their selected scheme and playbooks. The personnel management isn't even a person that you can hire or fire. It's just an abstract tree that, I guess, represents the entire front office staff. So the game does not even attempt to model the different coaching philosophies of head coaches, nor does it attempt to model the different team management philosophies of different owners or teams. For example, there could be different personnel management trees that could focus on things like offensive recruitment, defensive recruitment, drafting and developing young talent versus signing veteran free agents, giving second chances to players who have failed on other teams, reducing injury frequency and recovery time, or focusing maybe on team financials, and so forth. And the specific combination of trees available could potentially be based on the team's owner. I do still wish that the skill trees were wider so that coaches and coordinators could be a little bit more specialized. Currently, all 3 trees for each coach are a mostly linear path with just a few mutually exclusive skills. So their development still feels pretty linear. I also wish that coaches and coordinators had traits and motivations like the players do that might influence their willingness to sign with a specific team, or the willingness of a former head coach to take a demotion to be a coordinator, or influence the willingness of a coordinator to leave their current team and take a head coaching job from another team. And it would also be neat if we could hire assistant coaches for position groups, like what is offered in Axis football, and have the opportunity to promote from within your organization instead of always having to look to the free agent coaching pool for replacements. And there's also other really dumb user experience and interface issues. The biggest one being that, as far as I know, there is no way to look at what coaches and coordinators are available in the free agent pool unless you have a vacancy on your staff. So the user has no idea what coaches are available, or whether they have schemes and skill trees that are compatible with how you've built your team and how you want to play, until after you've already fired a coordinator. Mercifully, however, the game will let you rehire the same coordinator if you do happen to find that there are no better options available. So, no hard feelings, I guess. But these are all relatively minor nitpicks. The main takeaway here is that EA actually got the important part right for a change. Coaches and coordinators are actually different from one another, and their chosen scheme and playstyle actually does matter. There's also a degree of thought and strategy required for the user to decide who to hire and how to progress them through their skill trees. So, good job, Madden. you met a bare minimum level of competency in this one tiny regard. You actually released a minimum viable feature for a change. I mean, it took you 2 years and 2 game releases in order to do it, but you did it. Congratulations. You deserve a cookie. But you still don't deserve my $70. I still bought the game used a week after release, because, honestly, this is the way that coaching skill trees should have worked in Madden 23. And if it wasn't in at release, it should have been patched in soon after release. Like, the day after. It should not have taken a year and another $70 investment to get these common sense upgrades. Like, there's no reason to even have coaching skill trees and the ability to hire and fire coaches in the game if it's going to work the way that it did in Madden 23. Complete and total waste of a feature. Anyway, thank you all for watching this very short, backhanded compliment about Madden 24. I really hope to see you back again soon.